20 years of grieving, 20 years of tears, 20 years with no answers. Tonight, one Topeka family opens up about their sister's murder and pleads for information that could lead to an arrest. Plus, police look for answers in the case of an elderly couple, severely beaten and left for dead in their own home. Those stories and more tonight on Capital Cold Cases.
This is a Crime Stoppers cold case investigation. I'm Bill Curtis, urging you to help local law enforcement solve this or any felony crime by calling 234-0007. Now the host of Capital Cold Cases, investigator Dawn McWilliams.
Good evening. I'm Crime Stoppers investigator Dawn McWilliams. You're watching Capital Cold Cases. Tonight, an in-depth look at the first case taken on by Topeka's Cold Case Unit. An ambitious, vibrant Topeka woman shot to death in the prime of her life. But first, why we're here. Crime Stoppers is a way for local law enforcement to solve crimes using anonymous tips from the public. It's especially helpful in cold cases, crimes that have went years or decades unsolved. Here's more.
We just are starting this where we're looking at old cases, and so my job is to go through those cases and look and see, is there a suspect available? Is there any biological evidence available? Is it something that we could possibly solve?
There are thousands of homicide victims in the United States, and those victims, while they grab the attention of the public and the news when they first happen, they can become forgotten pretty quickly. And what cold case investigations allows is for us to resurrect those cases. And as society gets better at scientific investigation, we're able to use the current scientific methods on an old case to bring these perpetrators to justice maybe years after the fact.
I've been a prosecutor for 23 years, and in that time I've seen a tremendous advancement of forensic science. When I first started, there wasn't even DNA evidence that was presented in court. And since then, DNA evidence has gone through 3 different types of analysis.
There's so many cold cases that are solvable today that weren't solvable years ago.
We're in a position now where we can analyze a sample that's old, degraded, and small, where before we needed a large sample and fairly fresh. That forensic advancement is particularly helpful in cold case homicide prosecution.
Well, the new technology we provide, the importance of it with cold cases is that it's notoriously difficult for fingerprints from spent gun casings, and this is what our technology is looking for. And then we've actually got the technology to view the whole 360-degree circumference, image it, flatten it, add a scale to it, all within probably 2 or 3 minutes. And as far as we know, there's nothing else like it in the world. So to be able to help folks with cold cases and current cases as well is very exciting for us as a company.
This cold case unit that we're doing is partnering with Crime Stoppers to get these cases solved.
What Crime Stoppers does is it allows people to report crime anonymously via a number of methods in social media or by telephone that gives us a chance to follow leads on those cold cases and hopefully be able to solve those cases.
It leads law enforcement where we need to go and prosecution where we need to go without the person who's calling in with the tip feeling vulnerable.
I absolutely think that it's important, and it's our job and our duty as police officers to try to solve these cases again, because the science wasn't there back then, and now the science is available. So if we can get one small piece of evidence in with the science that we have available, then we could get a killer off the streets.
It's important to remember when you call Crime Stoppers, you are not calling the police, and your identity will remain totally anonymous. If you have information regarding the cases we profiled tonight or any other crimes, call Crime Stoppers at 785-234-0007 or text CRIMES and start your tip with top tip before texting your message. You can also go to topekacrimestoppers.org. Again, your identity is anonymous and protected by law, even in the event of a cash reward payout. Next on Capital Cold Cases.
This was a location that you don't expect these kind of things to happen in, quite honestly. This was a case that had every sort of twist and turn.
20 years after the murder, police and family members asked the public for help in solving the Roxanne Zwiesler case.
We're proud of the fact that WIBW was a founding member of the Capital Cities Crime Stoppers program. We hope you'll join all the WIBW family in taking a stand against crime in the Capital Region. We support the Capital Area Crime Stoppers program and this edition of Capital Cold Cases. Anyone with a tip about these cases can either call, text, or leave a tip on the web anonymously to help law enforcement solve the cases you've seen tonight.
Welcome back. Roxanne Zwiesler was the fourth of 7 children in her family. Being in the middle, she was the perfect age to form close bonds with both her oldest and youngest siblings. It's those close bonds that made her murder so devastating for her family. 20 years later, it's a loss they are still coming to terms with, and they say solving the case is the only thing that will give them the closure they so desperately seek.
She loved life. She was excited about everything.
Very energetic, and her energy she brought to the family and family get-togethers and stuff.
We were always laughing, always just getting ready to go somewhere all the time. She was always about the fun.
A love of life, a phrase that comes up over and over when talking about Roxanne Zwiesler. Ambitious, fashionable, artistic, one of 7 children, but always the life of family gatherings, until her life was violently cut short on the evening of June 13th, 1994.
A lot of times when I'm out, sitting in a tractor, mowing the yard, whatever, I always look back on some cases more than others and just replay them in my mind. I think, what did I miss? What could I have done different? Where did I go wrong?
It's been 20 years of second-guessing for retired Detective Tom Young, who headed up Roxanne Zwiesler's murder case in 1994.
This was a location that you don't expect these kind of things to happen in, quite honestly. Southwest Topeka. This was a case that had every sort of twist and turn.
It was the unexpected nature of the 39-year-old's death that made it a perfect candidate for Topeka's Cold Case Investigation Unit.
Once this unit really started running, this was the first case we looked at.
Detective Scott Dickey is currently handling Roxanne's case. He describes the days leading up to her murder.
We know on Saturday evening, she went out to a nightclub with some friends. Sunday, she spent the day at the lake boating and skiing with some friends. Monday, we know she went to work. She worked at the Jones store. While she was at work that day, she had a phone conversation with a friend and made plans to have coffee the following morning at 10 a.m.
Her girlfriend had called me and she was supposed to meet her for coffee, and she called me and told me she had not heard from her all day.
It was Roxanne's youngest sister, Michelle Wilson, who first suspected something may be wrong.
I'd been calling her apartment all day and it was busy. Her phone was busy all day.
She headed to Roxanne's apartment near 27th and Wanamaker.
I remember sitting at the intersection and how hot it was that day. And I remember just thinking, what am I going to walk into? What am I going to see? Is it going to be bad? You know, you think that for just 1 second, it goes through your mind for a minute, and you put it out, you know, instantly. You think that's not going to happen.
Roxanne's door was ajar. Michelle knocked anyway. No answer.
I walked into her apartment, noticed there was laundry on the floor, her laundry basket. Thought she was going up and down the stairs, probably doing some laundry. I proceeded to go into her bedroom, and that's when I found her.
Roxanne was dead, shot to death in her own home. The awful news made its way to the rest of her family.
I was actually working with a friend of mine. We did deck work together. We were getting ready to go to work, and his wife actually had called him, and he just basically told me that something's happened to your sister and you need to go now.
First, I didn't believe it. I drove over to the apartment where she was supposedly, killed, and I guess I remember just feeling like I was in a dream. More of a nightmare.
Teresa and Mike came over, and they said, Roxanne is gone. When we got back to Topeka, they explained to me that somebody had killed her.
With no immediate leads or suspects, all the Zwiesler family could do was mourn.
You know, there was just like a week before that she died that she asked me to go to the movie with her. And I was like, I don't want to go to the movie. And she just harassed me. And I was like, I don't want to go to the movies. I'm not going with you. And do you know how long I lived with that guilt after that? I mean, all I could think of is, why didn't I go to the movie with her? It was just the silliest thing. And that guilt just stayed with me about all the things I didn't do with her. Even though I did everything with her, that one last thing that I didn't do with her just hung with me. And it's you guys got to cherish every moment you have with people.
Police had little to go on in the investigation of Roxanne Zwiesler's murder.
In Roxanne's case, this was tackled by every available person within the detective division and all resources that the police could put into it. The first 48 hours, as you've probably seen and read or know, are the most important.
The closest thing investigators had to a witness was Roxanne's downstairs neighbor.
We do know at approximately 12:40 a.m., the neighbor of Roxanne heard some banging and some muffled voices coming from her apartment. That was the last time anybody heard or seen anything out of Roxanne.
In Roxanne's case, there were some things very obvious that the perpetrator had done to try and throw investigators off. I can't go into too many details about this. This was just a thing to give the impression that this was possibly a stranger, but from all indications, the killer in Roxanne's case knew her, she knew her killer, and they came through the front door.
Months, then years, then decades went by without an arrest.
As time went on, new leads would come up. We would follow these leads. We talked to people of all walks of life. Anything that came up, anything that remotely might be related to this, we investigated. And this thing went on, well, to today. It's still going on after all these years, over 20 years later.
20 years that have left a hole the Zwiesler family hasn't been able to fill.
As far as not knowing the last 20 years, I think what happens inside of you is You question yourself constantly as to whether you're not doing something that you should be doing. You know, am I not out there badgering enough people when nothing's going on? I just feel guilty that I should be doing something. I'm just not sure what it would be.
I miss her. I think about her not being able to see my daughters. She didn't know my daughters. She don't know my sons. I guess that's the biggest thing that sticks out in my mind is the years that she's missed.
The hardest part of all of this is the kids that don't get to know her when my daughter got married. Only thing I could think of is that Roxanne would be making her wedding dress. That's what she would have done. She would have done all of that with our kids and my grandkids now, so that's a big part of missing her.
Another wedding where we took a family picture and how the family has grown. I mean, these are all strictly blood relatives and stuff.
You know, keeping her memory alive is what it's all about. You know, she is and was a very big person in our lives.
Oh, she always wanted family pictures. She was so proud of her family. She loved her family. Just one thing I miss the most about her is
to get out pictures. We've never done that. This first time. This was awesome. You know, this was really, I think, a little bit of healing, you know, I think went on tonight.
People are so afraid to bring up her name or ask me about it. I love to bring her up. That's what keeps her memory alive. I want to talk about her all the time. I want people to bring her name up. I love to hear stories about her.
Uncle had a little pony, and she was riding that little pony without a saddle, and she was going along pretty good, and it went up that little hill, and it started to go down that little hill, and when it stopped and dropped his head like horses do, she just walked right off of it. She never even slowed down.
And seeing the pictures, seeing the, hearing the old stories, and seeing my brothers and sisters laugh and enjoy those times that we had with Roxanne. Like I said, I forgot all about a lot of those, but boy, they come rushing back when you look at old pictures.
The process of healing continues for the Zwiesler family. They are determined to stay hopeful and positive.
You have to go with the punches. I got a good support system. It's great to have a family around.
With the establishment of the Topeka Cold Case Unit in this episode of Capital Cold Cases, there's a renewed hope that Roxanne's family will see justice.
People want to solve this, and for a lot of years there, we thought, Roxanne was forgotten about.
I've been retired now over 9 years. DNA is just growing by leaps and bounds. What I hope is that sometime down the road, the technology will be such that they can wave that magic wand of DNA and you'll be solved.
So we'd love to have it solved. It would be a great blessing to me and my family. Maybe this way, somebody will step forward that knows something.
The optimism is tempered, though. Roxanne's family knows police have a window to solve her murder, and it may be closing.
As the years go by and people pass away and people move on, obviously that makes it tougher and tougher and tougher to get the answers that you're looking for. I just hope that somebody has something, if they're holding something inside of them, that they feel like that they need to share that with somebody.
Anybody watching this show that possibly has information, I urge them to come forward and speak with us. Call me directly, you can call the police department. And if you don't feel comfortable calling the police, you can call Crime Stoppers and get us the same information anonymously. This is a 20-year-old homicide. The family has suffered enough and they deserve closure. And Roxanne also deserves closure.
There's no doubt in my mind, somebody out there knows something. I would appeal to them to look in their heart and say, maybe it's time I just did the right thing.
Until that day comes, Roxanne's family will wait and do the best they can to hold back the tears.
The toughest time I have is every once in a while. It's usually in the shower, and it's usually by myself. Or if I'm not by myself, I usually have to muffle myself, and it's pretty uncontrollable. But it's very seldom. They say time heals. Time doesn't really heal it. You learn how to control it, and so it's few and far in between anymore. But there's a lot of people that need peace. My mom. I think my brothers have a hard time. Of course, I'm going to think I'm the bravest and I'm the strongest, but I'd like to see my mom be at peace.
Police say the murder of Roxanne Zwiesler is one of the top priorities for the cold case unit. They say in addition to there being no signs of forced entry into Roxanne's apartment, there was nothing missing, lending more validity to the theory that Roxanne likely knew her killer. Her family says Roxanne never mentioned any enemies or anyone she feared. Coming up, another murder in the victim's own home. This time, police say the motivation was money. That and more next on Capital Cold Cases.
Hi, I'm Sarah Shute with Capital Federal, a community partner of Capital Area Crime Stoppers. I, along with the entire Capital Federal family, stand up against crime in the Capital area. We support the work of Capital Area Crime Stoppers and this production of Capital Cold Cases. We challenge you to stand beside us to make our community a safer place for all. We encourage anyone with information to call, text, or go to the web to help law enforcement solve this or any other crime anonymously.
It was 2012 when Capital Cold Cases first brought you the story of Willia Tyndall and Leah Schmuck, two women shot to death in their Topeka home while the daughter slept in the next room. Police say their killer remains at large, and they are still looking for your help. Go to topekacrimestoppers.org to see that story and more in episodes 1 and 2 of Capital Cold Cases. Our next case police call a robbery gone wrong. A brutal assault that ended the life of a Topeka man and left his wife of 60 years severely injured. September 20th, the year 2000. Raymond and Mabel Aguirre's son arrived at his parents' home for a visit. What he saw upon entering was a sight no one should ever have to witness.
September 19th of 2000, Raymond Aguirre and Mabel, they were in their home. She was out in the living room praying with her rosary, and he was in his bedroom watching TV. Somebody came in the back window, took him, and started asking for money. He started hitting Raymond, who's 82 years old, and Mabel said, "I'm going to call the police," and he started beating her with her cane. He beat them so severely and left them there to die while he took some stuff from the house.
Both Raymond and Mabel were admitted to the Topeka hospital. The injuries inflicted upon Raymond by his assailant were severe. On October 14th, 3 weeks after the assault, Raymond passed away in his hospital bed. Mabel's injuries were also severe, but despite the permanent loss of sight in one eye, she was able to make a full physical recovery. But the loss of her beloved husband left within her a wound that would never be healed. To this day, the assailant in the Aguirre case remains at large. Police say they have reason to believe he was a black male, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, who in the year 2000 would have been in his late teens or early 20s. They say he was wearing a red sweater with a white collar. A tip from you could be the key to finding him. If you have any information about these or any other crimes, call Crime Stoppers at 785-234-0007 or text CRIMES and start your tip with Top Tip before texting your message. If your information leads to an arrest, you could receive a cash reward, and as always, your identity is anonymous and protected by law.
One of the most important aspects of helping the District Attorney's Office prosecute these cold cases is receiving new tips from the public. The information you have creates valuable leads for law enforcement to follow.
As your sheriff, I know cold case investigations have many roadblocks in the pursuit of justice, what really happened and who's to blame. My deputies and I at the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office appreciate the anonymous tips that have helped us solve many of our crimes. Our work is not done yet. Your tip information is needed to help us solve these cold cases as well.
Crime Stoppers has been a valuable asset to this community for over 30 years. My team and I value the work that Crime Stoppers does, and we depend on information from the community to help obtain justice. In order for us to continue bringing justice and closure to victims' families, your support is still needed.
As your host for Capital Cold Cases, I thank you for viewing our program. You can be a part of the solution and help solve crime in our community by supporting Crime Stoppers.